everyone, and welcome back to the Better Advertising with Better Media podcast. Today, I am incredibly excited to have Alan Lewis on the podcast, Director of Amazon Marketing Cloud within Amazon. Alan is amazing for many ways, but one of his announcements at Unboxed was around how we are revolutionizing, I would say, the future of Amazon with Amazon Marketing Cloud. So very excited to have him on here. For those who have listened prior, very familiar with Dustin Wasner, I'm sure, our head of product at Better Media and all things tech. And I would say leading evangelist at this point, leading influencer. He may not love that name, but these two on one podcast is a true specialty because, in my opinion, now Amazon, don't quote me on this. In my opinion, the announcements at Unboxed around Amazon Marketing Cloud are some of the most revolutionary updates to come to Amazon PPC. And I've been in the space for going on 7 years now, I would say. And I've never been so exciting for these updates. Amazon's Unboxed, in my opinion, the most revolutionary announcements we've had in 7 years of me doing Amazon advertising. Wow. What do you have to say with that?
Well, one, thank you. I'm really glad that you appreciated the announcements, and we hope that our customers make the most of them. I'll try to just rattle off a few of them, and we can go deep into whichever ones you want. So we announced that we are extending eligibility for AMC to include those who just advertise on sponsored ads, whether that's sponsored products, sponsored brands, sponsored display. We think that will be most applicable for those who spend more on sponsored ads. Like if you're just doing a little bit of spend, maybe there's not much there for you. And if you're spending across the sponsored ads funnel, whether that's sponsored products and sponsored brands, or combinations like that. So that was the first announcement. And then we also, related to sponsored ads, announced that a new feature called audience bid boosting. And that feature, which works through AMC, will enable you to create an audience of shoppers who you've reached before, or bringing in your own 1P data into AMC. Just basically craft an audience, but instead of activating that audience to target against, you can use that audience within sponsored products or sponsored brands to boost your bid amount against those or for those folks within that audience. So those are two of the announcements. And then a couple more. We launched our second AMC solution, which is a no-code experience that allows somebody to just go into AMC. They don't have to know how to code. They don't have to know SQL. But they can go in and use the powerful capabilities of AMC through just a keyboard and mouse and point and click and do some really powerful things. So the new solution that we announced is called Optimal Frequency, which does just what you think it might do. It helps you find the optimal frequency based on your past performance. And then you can either, so let's say you're not reaching your optimal frequency, you can craft an audience that is specifically to help you boost frequency for folks to try to get closer to the optimal frequency, or just with one click you can set frequency caps as well in case you might be exceeding your optimal frequency.
Incredible. I have a lot of comments here. I'm going to hold off on my bid boosting comments because, as we were mentioning before this podcast, I spent all weekend diving into this, and I had a panic call with Dustin. I say panic, but it was more just general excitement. And I was like, Dustin, stop everything we're doing. This is an opportunity. This is revolutionary, and we're going to dive into this. But before talking about that, we're going to keep that hype for the end. I think the biggest theme that I've noticed around AMC in general is just accessibility and utilization. I think that's always been a barrier to entry, whether it's on the tech side or whether it's on the needing access to DSP, right? Having to utilize DSP in order to take advantage of the AMC analytics or the AMC audiences. Why do you think the industry is, finally adopting this mindset of needing AMC for one? And for two, I have a feeling that one of the struggles that you have internally is, are people ready for AMC? Is a brand big enough to utilize AMC? And that's probably some question you have, because it adds a level of complexity to your overall Amazon strategy.
For sure. And we don't want people to use tools or features that are not right for them. So we want to make this tool available to anyone who wants to use it. So that's the overall goal. And I think with the announcements this year, we've been able to get closer to fulfilling that that vision of making AMC available for everyone. I mentioned this on my talk at Unbox, but we still have a ways to go with achieving that full vision. And we don't know exactly, what are the steps to get there. But that's why we want to get it into the hands of more people and then listen to their feedback, do the typical Amazonian thing of figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and iterating to try to get that tool available for everyone.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Dustin, on your end, what have you seen just dealing with me being excited about AMC and all of the brand conversations we've had, as well as how quickly Amazon moves? What has been some of your difficulties you feel like that we're running into from a scaling perspective and adoption with AMC?
Well, I mean, going back to what Alan had mentioned at first, I mean, I love the direction that Amazon's going with this. Destiny, you can relate to this as well. How when we talk to so many people about AMC, I find that there are two big moats surrounding it. There's the tech moat, you need to understand SQL, and then there's the accessibility moat. But so often in our space, there's a sense of FOMO. There's a new thing that's rolled out. I've got to integrate it fully. And so the first question with, this is different than sponsor brand video or some other ad type that's rolled out. The number one question that I am often asked or that I talk to people about is AMC, especially the reporting end of it, even appropriate for your brand? Because if you're really not running like a full funnel multi-click approach where you need to marry DSP and sponsored ads, it may not be highly beneficial to you. But I love the direction that everything's going, especially since Unbox, where it's like the tech mode's kind of getting a little bit smaller, a little bit more shallow. The accessibility, not needing DSP so that you can actually use the audiences with sponsored ads. That to me is the most exciting thing here because the number of ideas, it's very exciting. And I think this is a huge turning point in our space.
That's exciting to hear. Like I'm excited that you're so excited about it all. But I can't stress enough that point where we don't want somebody to have a feeling of FOMO, to feel like, oh, I need to do this. For one, AMC is not the only way to get some of the great features that it enables in a couple ways. Well, one, there's a great set of partners that we have who build capabilities, who build features using whether it's just AMC or our Amazon Ads APIs or Amazon Marketing Stream or some combination of those capabilities to then build great solutions for a wide variety of customers. Mm-hmm. And in fact, with the rollout, with what we announced at Unboxed, so sponsored ads, advertisers, they'll have the ability to use AMC only through partners for now. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make sure that folks have a good experience. And we know that there's a huge, very diverse set of businesses that use sponsored ads. We want them to have a good experience, and we're confident that our partners can provide that for most advertisers. Yeah. So that's where we're starting with this eligibility. But like I said, this is not the only step. We intend to go further over time. Yeah. But there's other, so the partners is one, and then also there's other just capabilities that are built in to Ad Console and to the DSP that we're really proud of. And we think those can provide some of the kinds of features that you had to use AMC for up until now.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that's a really strategic direction to take with this rollout because we do see it can be a little overwhelming when people aren't 100% sure what direction to take, right? When you start saying, work back from a question, sometimes it's easier to give them the questions that they should be using in the beginning. And I think that made it a little bit difficult when AMC was really starting to be pushed, 14 to 24 months ago. And now your partners are the people who can kind of say, hey, these are the typical use cases that we see. Right. To Dustin's point, if you're not fully moving up the funnel, maybe it is a little bit more difficult to utilize AMC for something like ad type overlap. But to that point, it's also so much easier for me to now have that conversation with brands when I could see, I pulled an AMC ad type overlap, just search ad type overlap over the weekend. Sponsored ads alone had around a 1% conversion rate. But when a customer was exposed to sponsored products, sponsored brands, and sponsored display, it jumped to a 13% conversion rate. That was on, I believe it was $2 million worth of spend. That is insane because now I can take that and I can showcase it to all my other brands who are unsure if sponsor brands are actually, driving incrementality or if their sponsored display view CPM campaigns are just cannibalizing their organic presence. That is, I think, the value of the way you have chosen to roll this out and how we have chosen to view the market. And that's why I think bid boosting is going to be incredibly exciting for us. But we're able to kind of filter through all of the noise and say, hey, across all of our partners, across all of the other podcasts I've hopped on, here's the top use cases that you should be using as a brand. So that way it kind of, I think, clears up a little bit of the noise, because it's an exciting talking point right now. I mean, I started the podcast saying it's the most revolutionary thing to happen, and that does cause a little bit of FOMO, but you all are working to, I think, ease that. And then that's also a big part of our vision, is to make it more accessible and understood as well.
Yeah, just to give an example of the kind of customer who I want to, who we have in mind when we're thinking about our roadmap. I went to CES for the first time earlier this year, and I got a couple hours away from all the meetings in all the ad related meetings to just go over to the main show and just walk around and talk to folks. And many, if not most of the businesses that I talked to were Amazon sellers. And for some, Amazon was their main or their only sales channel in the US. And one of them in particular that caught my attention, I had a good conversation with the founder, markets a dog vacuum cleaner, which is great because I have an Australian Shepherd and he sheds all over the place. So I went and bought one after talking to them. And they're one of those brands who they told me that they're struggling to build a brand, to move upper funnel. And at that time, they didn't have either the wherewithal themselves, and especially they didn't see that partners had the right set of tools for them, and certainly not at the right price point that they could afford just to get started. So I've kept customers like that in mind as we've thought about these features, so that we're not just focused on the customers we have now, but we're trying to broaden the opportunity to everyone, whether that's directly through partners or through features that Amazon builds itself.
It's incredible, really. You have such a wide customer base that you have to build products for. And I feel like the last 12 months especially has highlighted how quickly your team is moving and how quickly you solve problems and iterate on feedback as well. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm on a lot of product feedback calls, but you all move so quickly and make those adjustments. I mean, my first complaint I would say with AMC was I sat in on a session. I want to say it was Patterns Accelerate event. I sat in on a session where someone told me that in order to really be great at Amazon advertising next year, I need to learn SQL. And I was, oh, wow, my career is ending right here. And you all take that and you iterate on, and you're releasing so many more no code options and opportunities. And then the search barrier is incredible. And I'll pause there because I know Dustin's probably frothing to ask you a few more questions, but do you have anything to add on to that, Dustin?
No, but I remember that very well. And I thought, I mean, personally, I thought it was a little bit exciting because it's one of the few people in the space that knows ad tech very well, knows the space, and also knows how to do SQL. I thought this is great content opportunity here for things that, people want, but they can't necessarily use. But as far as the actual, like I said before, that's the emptying of the moat. I think that's the most exciting thing here. And especially for somebody like myself, because if I don't have to go through these queries, a lot of CTEs, the way the Sandbox is set up, it's difficult to test this stuff if you are working in a Sandbox environment, but you can't even tell what the CTEs are necessarily spitting out. It can be tricky in Amazon's interface, and then adding the API on top of that. So anything that reduces that, I'm all for. I'm very excited about.
I agree 100%. We think that it's making a product easier to use. It doesn't just help put that product in reach for more people.
Yeah,
it can help everybody, because you can be more efficient, you can get more done, you can spend more time experimenting versus just having to do a bunch of work just to get something working at all. So we really see that as having a really big effect overall.
So can we talk about sponsored ad bid boosting?
It is your podcast, so let's do it.
So do you want to give a high level overview for those who may not understand why this can be so beneficial? I mean, I have my opinions, but I would love to hear yours and the direction you believe that this will influence Amazon advertising strategy.
I could give big thoughts here, but in all honesty, like for myself and for most of the people on the team, we know that our customers are the experts, not us. So we have theories, we have ideas. when we come up with features and products. Of course, the famous Amazon peer FAQ, writing the press release and thinking of like what something will be. But it's often the case, and maybe most of all with a tool like AMC, that is just that. It's a tool that you can use in all sorts of ways. What customers have come up with in the past has not always been what we thought would be most interesting. Sometimes we get more or less what is most interesting or what's most impactful, but our customers are the best at figuring this out. Maybe I could describe like what, high level, what we think it will be useful for. You can give, I'd love to hear your take. So let's say that you market a product, you're marketing, I don't know, microphones or something, and you do so on Amazon. Maybe you do so through your own D2C site as well. So whatever the circumstance is, you have some idea of what kinds of customers are going to be more valuable, their higher propensity. Maybe it's folks that engage through your D2C, or maybe you have a kind of product, maybe not a microphone, but something that's has a shorter purchase cycle that it would be beneficial for you to market specifically to repeat customers. These are a lot of strategies that you use today in crafting various kinds of DSP audiences, looking at what are just audiences of people that I want to show an ad to at all. But within sponsored products and sponsored brands, it's, of course, keyword-based targeting. So we're not changing that. So we're layering the audience on top of that so that you can set a bid where, okay, if somebody's searching for something that demonstrates some level of interest or propensity, but if we also know the specific set of shoppers, like if they are searching on the right keywords and therefore would be eligible to see your ad, adding an additional percentage of amount that you're willing to bid on top of the base makes it more likely that your ads are shown to those shoppers in particular.
It's absolutely incredible.
So I'll turn it around, and ever the product manager, and I'm curious to have a bit of an interview. And as a experienced Amazon service provider,
the last 7 years, I think I have been on my soapbox around the fact that Amazon advertising search is so high intent that if somebody clicked, they were interested. I do not care if the keyword was not related. If they saw the image and a customer clicked on it, they were interested in one way or another, right? So when you start diving into day parting, you start diving into some of all these other aspects to take that audience that searched for a keyword and then clicked, and then you get a little bit more granular. It is a huge opportunity to drive, I think, one, incrementality, depending on how you're segmenting those keywords, two, precision around return on ad spend, all of those things. But we haven't had a lot of levers, I would say. I mean, on the auto campaign side, right, we have close, loose, complement substitutes. We have the match type expansion opportunity that can allow us to either niche down further or go broader. And then we had placement modifiers, which are also, I think, going to be used in a similar fashion here, but much larger. This rollout is incredible because it can revolutionize all of that strategy, in my opinion. Now, someone, especially if we're looking at CPG, which I think is also the easiest one to apply use cases to in this scenario, if you take something like I sell protein, I can now curate a much more specific audience and have a whole different bidding strategy to that. Argument that I always see in the space, especially after Amazon announced internal ad console day parting, but it only allowed you to increase bids, not decrease bids. The whole conversation was around like, well, of course they want us to increase bids and spend more. But that's the completely wrong way to view this, because the level of conversion increase you're going to be able to access by pulling such a specific audience and basically overlapping it with a search is incredible. So it's really, in theory, all you do is you lower your base bids for everything keyword based and you increase your bids on the bid boost from an audience standpoint. What I really think this allows us to do is we know kind of the direction that we see Amazon's going with Cosmo, with Rufus, with pulling in more intentionality when it comes to a search. Being able to apply that level of intentionality on the Amazon advertising side is absolutely incredible. And the way Dustin and I have built our campaign strategies and our reporting is incredibly segmented. We create campaigns for efficiency. We create campaigns for awareness. We create campaigns for organic rank and trying to improve BSR. And then we report on those. And I've really challenged Dustin to how do we take something that can be difficult to scale, which is identifying audience and applying one audience boost per campaign and make that scalable across all of our brands. So Dustin, I'll kind of let you take it away from there because I know you've been diving into this over the weekend, but what are your thoughts after we had our last conversation?
Many, and I'm experimenting and wanting to actually get Alan's opinion on this as we're going through this process of trying to scale this up, because I'm thinking for those who are listening, who just want to get started in this, maybe just want to see how this works, how things show up in the UI, a little bit more technical, but what I've been doing so far is just running manual queries in the editor using an IQL just to get an audience built. And I think that at that point, you would then use the targetable entities endpoint to find that audience ID, associate it with the ad group that you want to put it in. Is there an easier process that you're finding people can go through for those who are listening to get started with this, or is that really the simplest approach you can take?
It is right now. You're amongst the pioneers who are just working with the APIs as we've made them available. It might be live by the time this podcast goes out, but there will be a UI component within Ad Console so that you can associate an audience with a campaign versus having to use the API to do that. So that's the part of the initial release. That was just something where the timing was a bit wonky, and so we had to stagger things a bit. That will make that step easier. But for now, the audience creation will be driven through AMC.
Mm-hmm.
That is the scope of the rollout right now. But again, think about not just, okay, if you're a brand and you want to do this, what are the partner solutions?
Yep.
Who are the partners you can work with to do this on your behalf? Or we hope that there might be some tools that people build using AMC, building things on top that put it more within reach for a larger set of brands.
Our challenge, I would say, as a large scale service provider, in that we have a high number of brands with a high number of categories, with a high number of products, and we segment our campaigns on the ASIN/product level, is going to be, I think, two-part. One, identifying the AMC audiences that we can replicate the most and that can drive the highest value. So I know we've talked a lot about like high value audiences in general with like repeat purchases, subscribe and save, loyalty. I think those are all kind of the common ones. Incrementality around new to brands and what new to brand looks like on Amazon will be really valuable. Our job is, one, to identify those and say, what can we apply at scale that's going to drive strong enough ROI to make up for the complexity in campaign creation? Pretty sure that's where we're going to come in hot, and that's going to be our biggest focus in the beginning. And I could see us driving a lot of value in the industry. The second side of that is training our team to also be experts at audience identification. And I think that's going to be really important. Like search is, I would say, easier to train. If someone searches for a keyword, then they are interested in purchasing. But that next step is saying, what audience does a brand have? What is their ideal customer profile? You've started rolling out a lot more demographic insights, subscribe and save insights in both Seller Central and Vendor Central as well. Our job is now to understand the overall retail ecosystem and not just rely on search and keywords. It's to understand the audience a brand is targeting and then layer in those customizations that we could pull on the AMC side and then apply a bid boost to and hope it drives enough incrementality.
And we're trying to add more signals into AMC that open up more of those opportunities. So one example being, we later this quarter are rolling out brand store visits.
Yes.
Those metrics so that you can both use those to better measure your funnel, but also that opens up the chance to craft audiences taking those shoppers who visit your brand store into account. So perhaps there's use cases there about helping folks move down the funnel. If they've reached your brand store, they're clearly interested, and perhaps bid boosting off of either those alone or those in some combination could provide a great use case.
Which is incredible. I mean, there's so many opportunities there. I think on our end, what we typically see is a store page can sometimes have a lower conversion rate because I would say sometimes it's a little bit more difficult, high friction to just check out. A sponsored brand to a landing page, it's point, click, check out. A sponsored brand to a store page, if the store page isn't set up for conversion, it can be more difficult. On the flip side, a store page typically drives higher average order value because they have an opportunity to cross-sell and figure out another brand's products. So you just take those two easy, simple use cases and you could come up with a ton. You could say, hey, let's drive stronger retargeting across sponsored products and sponsored brands with store page visits. Or on the flip side, let's use the average order value and subset that audience who purchases higher value checkouts figure out different ways to target them throughout the funnel. And how do you make that scalable? Is Dustin's job.
Alan, one thing I wanted to go back to that you mentioned earlier is the different signals that come through different sources like marketing streams, something that's very exciting to me. It's probably one of the most passionate areas that I'm thinking of. So if you're setting up this custom audience, you attach this to an ad group, the performance starts flowing through it, and you're getting the details in marketing stream for this custom audience. They will show up in marketing stream, correct?
It's just like any other audience. This additional layer that's being applied onto existing campaigns. I don't know for certain whether marketing stream would contain the metadata right there in the stream about
Yeah.
which things had custom audiences applied or bid boosting audiences applied, but I can follow up on that point. And also in the meantime, you may keep your own record of, okay, these are the set of audience campaigns
Mhm.
to which we have these audiences applied for bid boosting, and then get the near real time data updates through marketing stream just to power your dashboards or your reporting.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
it, yeah, I think that would work.
So, I mean, as I'm going through this in my head, I'm just thinking of all the caveats here because when you've got the stream data, you can have, say, Yoga Mat come in the 2 a.m. window. But what's interesting about it, and a lot of people don't know this, is that you actually get that sponsored products target performance at each placement. This is the only place in Amazon that we get the actual placement performance for top of search for sponsored products. We only get that really in sponsored brands at the target level. But with these audience targets, because we're stacking them on top of a target, you really do have still top of search product placement, rest of search performance along with the audience being stacked. So what we actually could run into is a scenario where if we have a strong performing audience in a campaign, the top of search performance may go up, not because of the keywords, but because of the audience. Is that correct? Am I seeing that correctly?
Again, you're the experts here, so I hesitate to say like, oh no, that would or wouldn't work.
I'm just
Um,
thinking through like back, years ago when they did the placement performance, the modifiers. The instant that rolled out, everybody was dropping their base bids to 10 cents and then doing 900% modifiers. So they were forcing it top of search. But now we've got this additional layer where it's on top of those. So it's almost like commingled in. So it will make for a very interesting process to optimize bids when this is taking place. Does that make
it,
sense?
I think so. This sounds to me like a case where, okay, if you try this, you find it works, then you have something that can be part of your
Yeah.
toolkit. And if it doesn't, if you run into challenges and if there's like gaps in the product functionality, then let us know. and and we'll do our best to address whatever those gaps or those things preventing those sort of strategies, because we want this to unlock a lot of different use cases.
Yeah,
And
yeah, for sure. No perceived issues that I could think of, more just like how to strategically approach this with so many moving parts now going on, which, is our job at BTR to do this to the best of our ability for our clients, given additional levers now that we can pull on.
This is all also, I'd say, one of those areas of the business where I come in and I'm like, progress over perfection. And you have to go back to base, which is that it's still so incredibly high purchase intent. If someone click, they're interested. So our opportunity to get a little bit more granular is incredibly valuable, I would say, from a reporting perspective, because now we're going to be able to segment audiences based off some of those high value audience creation. We're also going to be able to report on, I think, different levers for different life cycles of a product, but not trying to perfect that, because I think there's too many signals. And as we all know, and I think we've all been preaching from the last Unboxed, is the path to purchase is not linear. So if we can't perfectly, I think, attribute every single decision and path and placement on the page, Dustin, there's no perfection here. And I know you'd love there to be.
We balance each other out. Let's
We
just put
balance
it
each
that
other
way.
out. We have to educate and say that this is going to be an incredible unlock, because I think it's going to get smaller brands an opportunity to make their dollar last a little bit longer, to get a little bit more granular, and for large brands as well to have an opportunity to maybe be a little bit more reactive and flexible to the market than we've seen them be historically.
if that's what we can achieve through this, that sounds fantastic. To help give more businesses more ways in which they can grow their businesses, that's the sort of thing that I think everybody at Amazon Ads really is here for, is helping businesses grow.
100%. And I think a lot of it comes down to education and trusting what they're seeing. And that's something that I think AMC has been incredible for, if we're being honest. Like it's going really, really back to the basics here. But I've had people ask me, do sponsored brands actually drive growth? I don't feel like they're valuable. And from, again, 2 years ago, I would go to them and say, like, open up your iPhone and look at the top of the page. Like, it's an incredible billboard ad. What do you mean? Put yourself in a customer's shoes. Obviously, it's valuable. But some of those in the space, some of the Dustins and those that are a little bit more data inclined than what I am, need to see it. And, you've released different attribution models now that multi-touch attribution is going to be incredibly beneficial. Ad type overlap, path to purchase. Those are just some of the basics that can help a brand feel more confident that their dollars being spent in the right place.
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why I think AMC has resonated with, frankly, more partners and more customers than we anticipated is because it both puts you in control and helps you understand and see exactly how something is working. Mm-hmm. So it just removes the mystery and helps you just trust what you're seeing. I think that goes a long way, even if you could get some similar functionality in standard reporting.
Yep.
You can do that and it's more efficient. But if you want to do something custom, or if for whatever reason you just want to know exactly how a query is structured, exactly what it's doing. That's why we invested so much into the instructional query library.
Yeah.
So that all those IQs, like there's 81 of them right now, you can see exactly what it does. You can mix and match. You can just run it as is. You don't have to construct something new, but you can see exactly how it works. I think that's a core element of why AMC has resonated so much.
100%. We've seen it be such a big unlock for our brands who were a little bit unsure if that streaming TV campaign was actually influencing their sponsored product conversion. And being able to kind of tiptoe our way into those conversations and provide the appropriate data has been incredible. I think it's helped us justify moving investments around a little bit more, but also, again, finding that balance of like no over analysis paralysis. That's something that you can also run into. So it's like, how do you find it and make it actionable? I think is the next step that we're really pushing our brands to, is like, how do we view this, whatever it is, from an analytics perspective, and really make sure we're adjusting our ad strategy to reflect that. I think that's going to be the next wave we're seeing in the market. It's like, okay, we now have the insights and access to it. How do we make sure it's actionable and we're not just using it to wave a flag that, yes, streaming TV is incredible?
Yeah, making these insights actionable has been one of the themes that we've taken on over the past couple of years. First, with rolling out audiences for Amazon DSP, and with other actions you can do through AMC solutions, like the frequency capping that I mentioned, and then the audience bid boosting being yet another.
Amazing. For anyone who's just now hopping into this space, I cannot imagine what it's like, because there's so many different avenues and so much excitement. Like, I'm so glad I got started back in the days of, here's a product display ad and a headline search ad, because I feel like I got it easy now that I could kind of elevate my learning. But for anyone else, I can't imagine, because it's so exciting. Like, you guys are incredibly innovative. How quickly you move out rollouts, I'm telling you, it keeps me on my toes, and it's why I love doing what I'm doing.
Glad to hear.
Well, do you have any other questions for us while we're here?
I do have one. So if for folks who've talked with me, who've had the chance to, I've met them at Unbox for the last 3 years, I've had the same question I've asked of pretty much everyone I talk to, if they're interested in AMC or if they're an AMC customer. And that is, what's the one thing that you would want to see in AMC that isn't there now? It could be changing something. It could be adding some signal. It could be adding some capability. What would it be?
The Sandbox environment for me. If there was a data set that could be downloaded, or if there was a Sandbox environment done in the query editor where the customer IDs are exposed, so that in a Sandbox environment doesn't matter. So I can actually see step by step each CTE, understand the queries that I build out better. I think the whole process for me would be significantly easier.
For those who don't know, the Sandbox is the environment within AMC. It's sort of separated right now. You have to explicitly go to it, and the same Sandbox contains synthetic data, so it's completely fake data that you can use when developing out queries to better understand how they work. Because one of the protections that AMC has with real data, with real signals, is you can't get any of the raw data out. It always has to be aggregated. That can make working with queries, can make it take more time. You have to do more trial and error. Glad to hear that we are working on a number of enhancements for the Sandbox, including we are looking at ways to get the Sandbox environment more closely integrated with the query editor, so you don't have to switch back and forth. We're still working on some of the details, but it's glad to hear that that's top of the list for you, because that's something that we've seen and we're working on.
Yeah, that would be incredible, especially if those threshold limitations were lifted so that you could actually get a little bit more details to what's going on throughout the query. That would be immensely helpful.
On my end, I would start by saying I am the lowest level of education when it comes to SQL, when it comes to AMC. The questions that I asked Dustin that he is able to translate into your language, he should deserve an award for. So just anything that we can do to make it more accessible, which I know is the direction we're going, more templated audiences, more templated analytics. Like if I could log into AMC per brand and just immediately see some of the ad type overlaps, all the partners are providing it, yes, but it does come with a premium when the partners are first to market with some of those rollouts. All of those in one place can be incredibly helpful. I still feel like there's a slight disconnect between what is my Amazon advertising PPC budget doing, what is my Amazon advertising DSP budget doing, and then also having to then go reference some of the reports and analytics can feel segmented, when in reality, budgets are moving fluidly and should be moving a lot quicker. And if I had access to some of that in a way that me, who has no idea what's going on when it comes to the language that you all are speaking, I think would be a really big unlock for me being able to be a better media manager.
That's also great feedback. And again, luckily that happens to be aligned with one of the directions that we're going, is to continue doubling down on the no code experiences. I forgot to mention, but you alluded to it, the template audiences feature that we also announced at Unboxed. So now you have both the high value audiences solution, which is a point and click, fully built out experience. And with template audiences, you can create an audience within AMC just by filling out a form. So just a form driven experience where we have 10 templates that we've launched with, representing many of the most popular kinds of audiences that people have used AMC for since its launch back in 2022. But that brings that power into the hands of media managers like you and other folks. And I must say, like, the two of you together sort of represent sort of like the two sides of what we see need to be brought together, is those who have the super deep business experience or marketing experience, along with those who have the technical wherewithal, whether it's SQL or coding. We want to break down those barriers. We want to make it so that those folks can more effectively collaborate. So some people happen to have both skill sets all in one. That's super rare across the board. Usually it's a team of people. And so we want to enable those teams to collaborate, to do all these cool things on behalf of their brands.
Well, I love it. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time again to hop on this podcast and everything that you did at Unboxed and provide value through for LinkedIn, or just, again, this has been incredible. So cannot wait to see what else you guys have coming.
Thanks for inviting me on. It was a great conversation.
Awesome. Bye, guys.